Sure, we have 30 seconds to tell you that drivers who switch to Progressive could save big. But then what? Well, radio has been called theater of the mind, so let's tell a story with sound effects. Wow, it's like I was in the story. Almost makes me forget this was supposed to be about saving big with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Hey everybody, it's Ed Mann, executive producer of The Real Brady Bros. Yes, it's your favorite podcast. Oh, of course it is. We are very, very excited for Q&A number 3 with the actual Real Brady Bros. It's Barry Williams and Christopher Knight. Hi guys, how are you?
Doing great. What do you got for us this week, Ed?
Okay, let's jump right in. We got, of course, this all comes from our Facebook page, at Real Brady Bros is the handle, at Real Brady Bros. And we urge you to go ahead, ask more, because we're going to do these about, well, I'd say every other week. They're a lot of fun. Joe asks the following. As a 35-year-old child of Nick at Night, this is the podcast I never knew I even needed. I love it.
Great.
Here's my question. Isn't that great? At any point, did any of you as kids, including Robert and Florence, Ann, or anyone working on the show, say out loud, we are creating something that will outlive us all in both TV history and Americana?
Not once. Not at all. That was thought by me when I finally turned around 28 or so, when realizing that it didn't seem to diminish in its popularity when it went to syndication. If anything, it seemed to have picked up energy. And in trying to escape its orbit as a young adult, I had an epiphany that maybe I wasn't ever going to be able to escape its orbit, which allowed me then early on, because I was probably 28 at the time, make peace with that. You know, it's going to be in the room before I get there, and it's going to outlive me, and that's okay.
So, hello, Joe. This is Barry, and it's a great question because today, almost everything we do will be there forever, whether we want it to be or not. But back then, TV shows would come, they would go, there would be a little bit of syndication, and then they would just disappear like forever. So that I don't think we were contemplating, but I am grateful, and I sometimes get criticized by Chris for this, being a very, very serious teenager, and I always approach the work as work, to always give it my best and try and be as believable as I could and do a good job. So at least I had that going for me, because if I hadn't really tried, if I'd just kind of gone in and tried to wing it, I would be embarrassed beyond all reality at this point.
But I think the nature of the question and how it's asked is he's wondering if we felt the success that we have now. Did we have an inkling to this success when we were doing it at the time? And my point is that I believe it was only the 4th year we got picked up for 22 episodes, an entire year. Every other year, we were never picked up for the entire year. We were picked up for 13 episodes and had to wait for the other 10 episodes or 9 episodes. And that's because of ratings. I mean, we were sort of on the cusp. If you were in the top 20, definitely you were going to get renewed. If you were somewhere nearing the 40th show, probably going to get canceled. Somewhere in between, 28 and 38, you're on the fence. And that's essentially where we were. Very popular on our night, but our night was Friday night. I believe the least watched night of the week. And always mindful of it, because all the adults were always talking about the ratings after they dropped. Not as a kid I knew anything about that, but making them excited or not so when the ratings were up or down. And the importance of that. And that if we had higher ratings, I guess we could have always expected that we're going to get picked up the following year. So I never felt like we were going to get picked up.
It wasn't unique to the Brady Bunch, though, this experience, I would think, because I remember shows like The Time Tunnel had to wait for they were always on the cusp, but they were on the same network as you guys, I think, on ABC. Star Trek, famously, was on the cusp. Just couldn't seem to get quite back there around 1970, 71. What are we going to do with this? Petitions were circulated, and finally NBC relented and said, sure, we'll give them another season. So Seinfeld, same thing. They were going show to show, and now it's become what? One of the great legendary programs of all time, as is the Brady Bunch.
I have a theory that Sherwood Schwartz wanted this program to have legs, and he purposefully stayed away, kept everything kind of universally acceptable. He stayed away from politics. He stayed away from religion. He stayed away from current events. Of course, we were in color, that helped. But the messages and the values were timeless. They were valid before, during, and ever since. So by not doing current events, we don't have as great a sense of where we stood historically. And so now it can still play as though it's today.
Yeah, but I again, getting back to the question, I don't think that we could have anticipated this kind of transformative experience. The show, in our minds, when we went off the air, was a success, and then it had ended, and it has only become more of a success in retrospect. And that's one of the most rewarding and oddest things about the involvement in the show, is that the success that we now feel about the show and not doing it is greater than the success we felt in the time of doing it. And now I can say he's right. Yes, we have, in television history and as a part of Americana, we are an important cog, and I wouldn't have thought that we would have been from the work that we did in the time that we did it, especially knowing the reviews that we got, the ratings that we got. It's going to be another series that when it was off the air would run somewhat in syndication and then be forgotten. But it hasn't been.
Having it be filmed, which was not uncommon at that time, but was certainly uncommon, a decade before. I Love Lucy was on, of course, famously Desi had come up with the idea of actually filming the thing, and that, of course, allowed it to survive forever. And now this happened, of course, to you folks, too. But there was something about the Brady Bunch that clicked in with Americana, and probably you couldn't anticipate it back in 1970, but here we are.
Yeah. I think the Brady Bunch was, in its time, a reflection of an earlier time. Really, that kind of golden sort of 10-year period after World War II, before Vietnam, maybe even after Korea. It was when the United States finally was a world power, and it was just go America. This is really worrying about nuclear holocaust. So it was late 50s, that feeling that it's a purity about America and about the American family. And we're a reflection of that. And the time we were being produced, there was a lot of discourse that, similar today, people not necessarily agreeing on much. Nonetheless, we were this island of sanctity in the midst of all that.
You were an oasis in the television wasteland.
What's our next question?
Ashley, I think it's a good question. She says, I'm a newer and younger 22-year-old Brady fan, which is, again, speaks to what we're talking about, the idea of longevity here. And in the past year, she binged the entire Brady universe, original show to the renovation show on HGTV. Her question for you guys is this: what job would you have if you had never been cast in the show? And what career path do you think you would have followed?
I grew up in a business family. My dad was a businessman, and I had thought that it might be interesting because I knew I wanted to be around show business, but I thought entertainment law might have been a really interesting and creative, kind of fascinating business to be in. Unlike, something like criminal law or family law, entertainment law, because it's kind of, it's so idiosyncratic, and there are so many different directions that contracts can go, deals can be cut. And I would have saved residuals and made sure that they were always in perpetuity for the actors who did series that would find themselves in 50 years worth of syndication.
Well, since I actually drifted into a whole other career, I probably ended up working in the career that I would have been in had I not been cast in the Brady Bunch or never been introduced to acting through my parents. Might not have been, in computers, and might have been in some other area of engineering, but I was always most stoked about science and engineering. So it would have been some, in building things. I don't know if, I could have also been a welder. To make something come alive physically, it has always been a passion of mine.
We got a couple more questions before we have to leave the session behind. Natalie in Sydney, Australia, asks the following. Were there many blooper moments on set that you can recall? One of your favorite moments, maybe, where someone kept making mistakes and the laughter was the result, where they just got broken up by it.
I know one blooper, and it actually made it to the air. It was a scene in the backyard, and it seems to me there was a trampoline. Chris, you might be able to help me with this, a trampoline or something. And, our names were all kind of interchangeable. I mean, Mike was Bob, and Bob was Mike, and Eve was Jan, and Maureen was Marcia, and, that kind of stuff. So I said, come on, Eve, you can do it. And because, and I was, of course, it was Jan that I was meant to single out, but you can hear it on the air.
But it was a melee moment, right? It wasn't like it just stuck there like a bell. There was other overlapping dialogue because it was all ad lib. And that might have happened even more frequently than this time, and was able to be edited out because it was isolated, it was noticed and removed. In Barry's case, it's subtle enough that it didn't jump out, and perhaps because something else is being said at that time.
Right. 6 or 7 people were in the scene, so
Now, unlike a lot of other shows, series that had more time, we were really. One of the advantages to the network of our show, as I understood it, was that it was really inexpensive to produce. It was a deal, if you will. And it was that way because we were doing it in an exceptional amount of time. 3 days. Actually, at one point, Barry, was it the third year or the second year, where they tried to get even more done in less time. They tried to get us down to 2.5 days an episode, literally trying to get 2 episodes produced in a 1-week time frame in the 5 days. They actually fell behind when they tried that. I don't know how many shows they tried to do that over, like 6 shows or something, and then realized that 3 days was working. And at some point, we got 4 days. I don't know what happened to get us the 4 days, but it's a struggle when you're working with kids. And then secondly, when you have that kind of a tight schedule, it just makes the struggle harder. And it all measures out to there's not as much time to film any one scene. There's no time to goof off. In a lot of other series, ones that I've guest starred on, and there's a great deal of cut up that is actually like for the blooper reel. Like literally, let's lay this in for the blooper reel. Print that for the blooper reel. We never had a blooper reel.
No,
there was.
But I remember one from the pilot. Aren't you coming with us?
That was a line that Rich couldn't get me to say any other way. Yeah. I had a hearing disability, I guess. It just came out the way it came out, and there's nothing you're going to do about it. I do know one, and I think we've talked about it. We might not have, and that is that we're going to Hawaii. So there was always a direction in our scripts if it was a group reaction. One of 2 kind of reactions. It was shouts of enthusiasm. This is a reaction to something that somebody does or says, or groans of disappointment. But it was one of the 2, right? This is met with groans of disappointment or shouts of enthusiasm. And so shouts of enthusiasm was called for in the scene where Mike comes in and announces to the family that we're all going to Hawaii. And so this was the one time I remember that, and I think it was Florence who was a ringleader on this, and that's what made it okay, is we're going to joke around. And that is, she says, this when he comes through the door, and he says, we're going to Hawaii, everybody groan. It's all groans of disappointment and walk off in different directions, so dejectedly. And we did. And and you see Bob's face. Bob was like shocked by this because he wasn't at all what he was expecting. But Michael Lookinland decides to say, I wanted to go to Cincinnati. And lo and behold, that's where we'd go the next year. There was talk about us going to Japan and the
that's
5th
right,
season.
the Cincinnati Kids episode. Yeah.
But and why he picked Cincinnati, it was just some kind of cosmic connection, I guess. But I thought that was fun. And they didn't record it. I mean, they didn't keep a reel of outtakes because to print the film and all
destiny
took time.
It was destiny.
Right, exactly. We have time for one more, guys. One more.
Okay.
Karen asks a crucial question, and this is very, very important. Did you take anything from the set after production ended? Or what would you have liked to have had?
This is dangerous.
Yep.
I don't know how this happened, but suddenly
it's a hedge from the top.
Suddenly, it turns out that I have the Tiki from Hawaii.
Do you really? So that really is the Tiki
one
from Hawaii.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Somebody just asked me that question this past week, and I said no. He doesn't have the original Tiki. Props got that.
Wow, I think the statute of limitations has run out on grand theft. Thank goodness.
I hope so.
So
don't tell anybody.
You have the
we're not
original
telling
Tiki.
anybody. Nobody is listening to this.
Okay.
So the ones that you or somebody could buy from your website are replicas of that very Tiki.
No, they're all the original one. No, of course they're replicas.
Okay. No, I'm wondering whether or not you actually used it by sending it to someone to have them design a model so that you could then make others that were a replica, or somebody just designed their own.
They did a still frame on it and then copied it from them and blew it up. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But that's where do people get those, by the way? Oh, eBay.
Wait.
That's it.
eBay.
That's right.
And what's
eBay.
the handle on eBay? What do they look for?
It's Barry Williams. Barry Williams, there's something with it, but it's easy.
So let's just remind our audience, this is you buying a Tiki that will bring you bad luck, and now we learned that it was stolen.
It was stolen.
The model was stolen. So I'm sure that has some kind of force multiplier on the bad luck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Chris, anything come to mind?
In my case, no, I didn't have the presence of mind to keep anything. But I did find that after the show was off the air and we were canceled, that I had my director's chair. Apparently, my dad saw fit, because it had my name on it, that it should be mine. So he lifted it.
So was it the whole chair, or was it just like the
whole
backing
chair?
with your name?
The
He did
whole chair.
It folds
Fantastic.
up. What the heck?
It has my name on as they did, the arm.
Where does that exist now?
It's in storage. It's the back and the seat, or the canvas at the time, they're rotted out, but the frame is in storage. If they want to come get it, I have to admit,
for 20%, you can put it on my eBay. Store.
I don't have a spot for it in our house, but it is the one thing that I do have outside of the scripts, which I also didn't keep. I threw up. My dad grabbed them out of the trash, and he then.
Oh, that's a shame, because those things are valuable now, actually. Those things actually go for money. Yeah.
You only have to wait 50 years.
So, yeah, I'm innocent. But, one of the interesting, I don't know, Barry, if you supplied anything when we first started in the first season, they asked us to bring stuff in that they could put in the set to dress the set with that, would make it more like it was ours. So I brought in models that I made. I mean, nobody told me I'd never get them back.
Exactly.
I had a little sign that said "Keep off." It was just a little piece of pine. I think it was a Cub Scout project, and it was burned in "Keep off," and that went on. That was actually affixed to the foot of the bunk bed. But none of that was ever returned. Over years, too, the models don't last very long, especially when being moved around. And by the fourth year, just pieces of the models existed.
Right. I remember bringing in a surfing picture, large wave surfing poster behind my bed over there in the boys' bedroom.
Now there's the picture of you surfing, and they use that in the background of kids' rooms. It's like there's great surfing.
A tiki and a spider.
That's right.
Bite ya.
This has been a lot of fun, guys. I love these Q&As, and I'm sure the fans do. And I hope everyone's enjoying them. Real Brady Bros is the Facebook page. You can ask your questions there. We collate them and put them together in a very scientific manner. And then we send it to the guys, and here we are doing the question and answers. It's a lot of fun. Be sure to enjoy the next episode that you will hear on the Real Brady Bros at a podcast delivery service near you. Thank you, guys.
You bet.
Thank you.
Searching for just the right job? Whether you're looking for full-time, part-time, or seasonal work, you can get started today. Amazon Jobs offers the whole package with great pay and flexible shifts that allow you to choose when and how much you work. Find a warehouse close to home and discover the role that works for you. To get your application started for an hourly job, go to Amazon.com/apply. That's Amazon.com/apply. Amazon is proud to be an equal opportunity employer.
What's that place you've always wanted to try? Well, you're there, sharing plates with
just one bite.
Or on second thought, maybe not sharing. It's that good. When you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it.